Hello there, and welcome to the Sleep with Science channel. Before we get started, if you love exploring the depths of space as much as we do, take a second to like the video or subscribe. It's a simple action, but it helps the channel to reach more curious minds like yours. Now let's begin. Close your eyes for a moment, even as you listen. Imagine stepping outside on a clear, moonless night, far from any city, far from any light but the sky itself. Above you, thousands of stars scatter across the darkness, and if you could see as far as our telescopes see, that number would swell into the billions, then the trillions. Our galaxy alone, the Milky Way, holds somewhere between 200 and 400 billion stars. And our galaxy is only one among an estimated 2 trillion galaxies scattered through the observable universe. 2 trillion. Try to hold that number in your mind. Now multiply it by the hundreds of billions of stars each one might contain. The universe should be drowning in light. Every direction you look, your gaze should eventually land on the surface of some blazing star, somewhere, at some distance. The night sky, by simple logic, should glow white from horizon to horizon, an unbroken sheet of brilliance with no room left for darkness at all. And yet, here we are. The sky above you tonight is black. Deep, soft, velvet black, dotted only sparingly with points of light. This isn't a small inconsistency. It is one of the strangest and most profound puzzles in the history of human thought, a question that quietly troubled astronomers for centuries before anyone found a satisfying answer. It even has a name, borrowed from a 19th-century German astronomer who wrote about it with such clarity that it now carries his voice into our own time. We call it Olbers' paradox. But long before Heinrich Olbers gave it his name, the question had already unsettled some of history's greatest minds, going back to the days of Johannes Kepler, who stared up at the night sky and felt, quite reasonably, that something about it didn't add up. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, we are going to sit with this question together. Not to rush toward an answer, but to let it unfold slowly, the way starlight itself unfolds across unimaginable distances of space and time before it ever reaches your eye. Because to truly understand why the sky is dark, we first need to understand what light actually is, how far it travels, how long that travel takes, and what happens to it along the way. We need to understand the true scale of the universe, a scale so vast that human language struggles to hold it. We need to think about time itself, about how looking outward into space is also looking backward into history, deeper and deeper into the past, until we reach moments before stars had even formed. So let yourself relax now. Let your breathing slow. There is nothing to solve tonight, nothing to figure out, nothing to hold on to tightly. Just let the questions drift through your mind like slow-moving clouds across a dark sky, softening the edges of your thoughts, loosening the grip of the day behind you. Picture yourself lying beneath that impossible number of stars, 2 trillion galaxies, hundreds of billions of stars in each, more light sources than grains of sand on every beach on Earth, more than every grain of sand in every desert combined. And still, breathtakingly, achingly dark above you. The ancient Greeks assumed the universe was infinite and unchanging, stretching backward and forward in time without beginning or end, filled evenly with stars in every direction. Under that assumption, the paradox becomes even sharper, even stranger. If space goes on forever, and stars are scattered throughout it more or less evenly, then no matter which direction you look, your line of sight must eventually strike a star. There would be no gaps, no empty patches, no darkness left to hide in. Every photon of every star, dimmed by distance but never fully extinguished, should still arrive, layer upon layer, until the whole sky burned as bright as the surface of the sun itself. That was the unsettling logic that Kepler wrestled with in the early 1600s, centuries before anyone understood what a galaxy even was, before anyone knew the universe had a beginning, before anyone could measure how fast light travels or how old the cosmos might be. He looked up, and the darkness itself felt like evidence, some quiet clue pointing toward truths about the universe that no one yet had the tools to grasp. Let that feeling settle over you now, that same hush of wonder, the sense of standing at the edge of something vast and only partly understood. We are going to walk through this mystery slowly tonight, star by star, galaxy by galaxy, and light year by patient light year, letting the answer reveal itself the way dawn reveals a landscape, not all at once, but gradually, gently, until everything that seemed hidden stands revealed in soft and certain light. Let's begin with something you have felt your whole life but perhaps never thought to question. Light is not instantaneous. It does not simply appear the moment something shines. It travels. It moves through the vacuum of space at a fixed and finite speed, 186,000 miles every single second. That sounds impossibly fast, and in the world you know, it is. A beam of light could circle the entire Earth 7 times in the space of one heartbeat. But space is not the world you know. Space is so vast that even at this staggering speed, light takes real, measurable time to travel anywhere at all. When you look up at the sun, you are not seeing the sun as it is right now. You are seeing the sun as it was 8 minutes and 20 seconds ago, because that is how long its light takes to cross the 93 million miles between that star and your eyes. The sun could, in theory, vanish this very instant, and you would still see it shining for another 8 minutes before the sky went dark. Let that settle over you slowly. Every time you have ever looked at sunlight, you were looking into the past. Now stretch that idea outward, gently, the way you might stretch before sleep. The next nearest star beyond our sun, a small, dim companion called Proxima Centauri, sits so far away that its light takes over 4 years to reach us. 4 years, traveling at 186,000 miles every second, without pause, without slowing, and still, 4 years pass before that light arrives. This is why astronomers measure distance not in miles, but in light years, the distance light itself travels in 1 full year, which comes to about 6 trillion miles. 6 trillion. And Proxima Centauri, our closest stellar neighbor, is over 4 of those light years away. Now let your mind drift further outward, past our solar system entirely, out through the edge of the Milky Way, our home galaxy, a great spiraling disk of stars so wide that light itself takes 100,000 years to cross from one side to the other. 100,000 years, and that is only the width of one galaxy among 2 trillion. Beyond our galaxy lies emptiness, vast quiet stretches of space, until you reach our nearest large galactic neighbor, Andromeda. Its light has been traveling toward us for 2.5 million years. When that light finally lands on your eye tonight, if you were to look up and find it, you would be witnessing Andromeda not as it exists today, but as it existed 2.5 million years ago, long before modern humans walked the Earth. This is the strange and beautiful truth hidden inside every glance at the night sky. You are not looking outward into space alone. You are looking backward into time. The deeper into space you gaze, the further back into history you travel, layer upon layer, star by star, galaxy by galaxy, each pinpoint of light a fossil, a message sent from a moment that has already long since passed. And here, quietly, is where the paradox from before begins to loosen its grip, though we are not ready to resolve it fully, not yet. Because if light takes time to travel, and the universe itself has existed for a finite amount of time, then there is a limit to how far back we can possibly see. There is an edge, not of space exactly, but of visibility, a boundary shaped not by distance but by time itself. Astronomers now understand that the universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old, born from an event we call the Big Bang, a beginning point from which everything we know, all space, all time, all matter, began expanding outward. 13.8 billion years might sound like an unimaginable stretch of time, and it is, and yet it is also, in cosmic terms, a boundary, a wall, a horizon we cannot see beyond. No matter how powerful our telescopes become, We cannot receive light that left its source more than 13.8 billion years ago, because that light simply has not had enough time to reach us yet. It is still traveling. It is somewhere out there right now, crossing the silence between galaxies, patiently making its way toward Earth, toward eyes and instruments that do not yet exist to receive it. Rest in that thought for a while. There is no rush here, no need to hold every number perfectly in place. Just let the scale of it wash over you, slow and heavy like a tide pulling gently at the shore. The stars above you tonight are not simply distant. They are old, ancient messengers of light, carrying stories from a past so deep it stretches back toward the very beginning of everything. And somewhere in that vast interplay of distance and time, of light traveling for millions, even billions of years, lies the first thread of an answer to why the sky above you remains, for the most part, dark. Let this thought settle like sand drifting slowly to the bottom of still water. If the universe has only existed for 13.8 billion years, then no matter how many stars fill the cosmos, no matter how endless the count of galaxies stretching outward in every direction, there simply hasn't been enough time for light from the farthest reaches to complete its journey to us. Some of that light is still crossing the void tonight, patient and silent, moving through the emptiness between galaxies at the same unwavering speed it has always traveled, waiting for a future moment, perhaps thousands or millions of years from now, when it will finally arrive somewhere and be seen. This is the first great piece of the puzzle, and I want you to hold it gently in your mind as we continue, without gripping too tightly, without straining to understand it all at once. Because the ancient Greeks, and even Kepler centuries later, imagined a universe that had simply always existed, infinite in time as well as space, without a beginning and without an end. If that were true, if the universe had existed forever, stretching backward through eternity with no starting point at all, then there would have been infinite time for the light from every star, every galaxy, everything shining anywhere in the cosmos, to have already reached Earth. Under those conditions, the darkness above you would make no sense at all. The whole sky would blaze. But the universe did not always exist. It began. And that beginning placed a limit, a soft, invisible boundary on how much light has had time to arrive here, in this quiet room, on this particular night, as you rest beneath the stars you can actually see. Let your breathing slow again as we sit with this a little longer. Picture the universe not as something static and unchanging, frozen in place like a photograph, but as something alive, something still unfolding, still growing, still stretching outward even now, in this very moment, as you listen to these words. Space itself is expanding. This is one of the most extraordinary discoveries in the history of science, first observed by the astronomer Edwin Hubble in the 1920s, when he noticed something peculiar about distant galaxies. Their light was shifted, stretched toward longer, redder wavelengths, in a pattern we now call redshift. And the further away a galaxy was, the more its light had been stretched, the faster it appeared to be moving away from us. This wasn't galaxies flying through space like debris from an explosion. It was space itself expanding, carrying galaxies along with it, stretching the very fabric of the universe the way a slowly rising loaf of bread carries raisins further apart from one another as it bakes, without the raisins themselves needing to move at all. Let that image rest in your mind. Imagine that gentle rising, that slow, continuous stretching, happening everywhere, all around you at every moment. The galaxies are not just far away. They are growing farther away, and they have been since almost the very beginning of time. This expansion changes something crucial about the light traveling toward us. As space stretches during the light's long journey across billions of years, the light itself stretches too, its wavelength lengthening, shifting from the visible spectrum toward longer, redder, and eventually invisible wavelengths entirely. Light that began its journey as brilliant visible radiation from a young, blazing galaxy can, after billions of years of travel through ever-expanding space, arrive here stretched so far that it no longer falls within the narrow band of wavelengths our eyes can perceive at all. It becomes infrared. It becomes microwave radiation, silent and invisible to human sight, though our instruments can still detect its faint, cold whisper. This means that even some of the light that has had time to reach us, light from galaxies so distant and so ancient that we would expect to see it filling gaps in the darkness, has been transformed along the way, stretched by the expansion of space itself into wavelengths we cannot see with our eyes. So even where light exists, even where photons are, right now, arriving at Earth from unimaginably distant sources, that light may no longer register to us as light at all. It arrives instead as a kind of cosmic hum, a background murmur far beyond the reach of human vision, a memory of brilliance now hidden in wavelengths our biology was never built to perceive. Rest here for a moment. Let the weight of this idea settle slowly, like snow falling without sound. The universe is not simply large. It is also aging, expanding, transforming the very light that moves through it. And so the darkness above you is not empty in the way it first appears. It is layered with invisible light, ancient light, light so old and so stretched by the passage of time and the growth of space that it has slipped entirely beyond the narrow window of what human eyes were ever designed to catch. Let this thought drift through you slowly, the way warmth spreads through a body settling deeper into soft blankets. Your eyes, remarkable as they are, only perceive a tiny sliver of all the light that exists. Visible light, the light of sunsets and starlight and the gentle glow of a candle, occupies only a thin band within something far larger, something called the electromagnetic spectrum. Beyond the reds your eyes can see lies infrared, then microwaves, then radio waves, stretching out into wavelengths so long and so gentle that they pass through you constantly, silently, without your ever noticing. And beyond the violets your eyes can see lies ultraviolet, then X-rays, then gamma rays, vibrating so quickly, so tightly, that they too remain invisible, even as they carry immense energy. Light, in its truest sense, is far vaster than sight. And so, when we ask why the sky above you is dark, we are really asking a much more specific question. We are asking why the sky appears dark to human eyes, within this one narrow slice of all the light that actually exists and travels through the universe at every moment. Let yourself sink a little deeper now, releasing any tension still resting in your shoulders, your jaw, the muscles around your eyes. There is nothing to solve here tonight. Only threads to follow, gently, one after another, the way you might follow the sound of a distant, familiar melody drifting through an open window. We spoke a moment ago about how the expansion of space stretches light into wavelengths beyond what we can see. There is a particularly beautiful example of this, one that changed our understanding of the universe forever. It's called the cosmic microwave background, and it is, in many ways, the oldest light in existence, the very afterglow of creation itself. Roughly 380,000 years after the Big Bang, an almost impossibly brief moment on the grand scale of cosmic time, the universe cooled enough for light to travel freely for the very first time. Before that moment, the universe was a hot, dense, opaque fog, filled with particles so tightly packed that light could not move through it at all, scattering endlessly, trapped, the way fog scatters the beam of a flashlight and refuses to let it travel far. But as the universe expanded and cooled, this fog cleared, and light was finally set free, spreading outward in every direction, filling the newborn universe with brilliant radiation. That light is still traveling. It is still arriving. In fact, it surrounds you completely, right now, in this very room, filling every direction of space with a faint, steady whisper of radiation left over from the earliest visible moment of the universe's life. But because space has been expanding for nearly 14 billion years since that light was first released, its wavelength has been stretched enormously, transformed from the blazing brilliance of an infant universe into microwave radiation so faint, so cold, that it registers today at a temperature of only a few degrees above absolute zero. You cannot see it. Your eyes were never built to perceive it. And yet it is there, ancient and patient, the true and honest afterglow of the beginning of everything, filling the darkness above you with a kind of light so old, so transformed, that it no longer resembles anything you would recognize as light at all. Isn't there something strangely comforting in that? The sky above you, which looks so empty, so quiet, so dark, is in truth humming faintly with the oldest whisper the universe has ever produced, a whisper you simply cannot hear with the instruments you were born with. Let that comfort settle over you now, slow and warm, like the hush that falls over a house late at night when everyone inside has finally drifted off to sleep. But this cosmic microwave background, ancient as it is, only accounts for a portion of the darkness we experience. There is more to uncover here, more layers to gently peel back, more quiet mysteries folded into the space between the stars. Because even accounting for the finite age of the universe, even accounting for the stretching of light through cosmic expansion, there remains a deeper question about the stars themselves, about how they are actually distributed throughout the universe, about the vast, echoing emptiness that exists between them. Space, it turns out, is not simply full of stars scattered evenly in every direction, the way Kepler once imagined. The universe has structure, texture, pattern. Stars gather together into galaxies, and galaxies gather together into clusters, and between these clusters lie vast, silent gulfs of nothingness, stretching for millions upon millions of light years, spaces so empty, so profoundly vacant, that they contain almost nothing at all. Voids, astronomers call them. Regions so vast that light itself takes 100 million years just to cross from one edge to the other, and within that immensity, only a scattering of galaxies drift, faint and lonely, like the last few embers of a fire that has nearly gone out. Imagine standing at the center of one of these voids. If such a thing were possible, if your body could survive the endless cold and the endless dark, you would look up, and in every direction, for millions of light years, there would be nothing. No sun, no moon, no familiar constellations tracing their old, patient stories across the sky. Just a black so complete, so total, that even the faintest galaxies would appear only as pale whispers of light, barely distinguishable from the dark itself. This is the architecture of the universe, and it did not happen by accident. In its earliest moments, the cosmos was almost perfectly smooth, a soup of energy and matter so uniform that the differences from one region to the next were smaller than one part in 100,000. But almost is the operative word. Tiny quantum fluctuations, ripples so small they defy easy imagination, were stretched and magnified during the universe's first fraction of a second, during that almost incomprehensible burst of expansion called inflation. Those tiny ripples became the seeds of everything that followed. Regions with just slightly more matter began to pull in more matter still, gravity patiently gathering the slightly denser places into denser places yet, while the slightly emptier regions grew emptier, their scant material drawn away toward the gathering swells around them. Over billions of years, this process carved the universe into what scientists now call the cosmic web, a structure that looks, when mapped across the largest scales we can observe, remarkably like a vast, glowing lattice, or perhaps like a great and ancient neural network stretched across the dark. Filaments of galaxies stretch across unimaginable distances, threading through space like luminous strands of spider silk. Where these filaments intersect, matter pools into dense clusters, sometimes containing thousands of galaxies bound together by gravity, orbiting a common center for eons beyond counting. And in between these filaments, in the spaces the threads do not reach, lie the voids. Empty. Waiting. Ancient in their emptiness. Our own galaxy, the Milky Way, exists within this vast structure, part of a modest collection of galaxies we call the local group, itself a minor tributary feeding into a much larger structure called the Laniakea supercluster. And beyond our supercluster, beyond the reach of our most patient telescopes, this pattern is thought to repeat again and again, filament after filament, void after void, an endless, breathing lattice stretching outward in every direction, further than light has had time to travel to us since the universe began. Consider, then, what this means for the darkness above you. Consider that when you look up into the night sky, you are not merely peering into the gaps between stars within our own galaxy. You are peering, in certain directions, into regions of space so profoundly empty that no galaxy exists there at all, not for tens of millions of light-years. The light you might expect to find, the light that Kepler and Halley and Olbers all assumed must eventually fill every corner of the sky, simply is not there to find, because in these vast cosmic deserts, there was never a star to produce it in the first place. And this changes the entire calculation. Olbers' paradox, remember, rested on the assumption that stars are scattered evenly and infinitely throughout space, so that any line of sight, extended far enough, would eventually strike the surface of some star, however distant. But if space is not filled evenly, if instead it is structured into filaments and walls and clusters and voids, then countless lines of sight extend outward and simply pass through nothing at all, threading endlessly through emptiness, encountering no star, no galaxy, no source of light whatsoever, all the way to the very edges of what we can observe. The universe, in other words, is not a uniform haze of light waiting to fill the darkness, given enough time and enough patience. It is closer to a sparse and delicate lace, woven from threads of galaxies suspended in an overwhelming abundance of empty space. And lace, by its very nature, is mostly the absence of thread. The eye is drawn to the pattern, to the galaxies, to the shimmering points of light scattered across our vision, but the truth of the universe's geometry lies in the gaps, in the spaces the light never touches, in the silence between the strands. This structure did not simply appear once and remain fixed. It continues to grow, continues to stretch, continues to hollow itself out even now, as you rest here in the dark, and the very fabric of space between these great filaments continues to expand, continues to pull the galaxies within the void's boundaries ever further apart, so that the darkness, rather than fading with time, might in certain profound ways be deepening, slowly, silently, across the unimaginable stretch of cosmic time still to come. This is a strange thing to hold in the mind as you drift toward sleep, that the very void expanding around those distant galaxies is not a passive backdrop but an active force, a quiet and patient architect, widening the spaces between filaments even now, in this very moment, as your breathing slows and your thoughts begin to loosen their grip on the waking world. But structure alone does not fully explain the darkness either. Even within the densest filaments, even within the crowded hearts of galaxy clusters where matter gathers most thickly, the space between individual stars remains almost incomprehensibly vast. Consider our own modest corner of the Milky Way. Our Sun, this star that warms our small blue world, has a nearest stellar neighbor, Proxima Centauri, drifting some 4.24 light-years away. If you shrank the Sun down to the size of a marble and placed it in the palm of your hand, Proxima Centauri, on the very same scale, would rest more than 800 miles distant, a lonely second marble lost somewhere far beyond the horizon. Between these two small points of light, there would be nothing. No dust, no planets, no fragment of rock or ice. Just emptiness, cold and silent and endlessly patient, stretching in every direction. And our Sun's neighborhood is not unusually sparse. This is simply the ordinary architecture of a galaxy, stars scattered like solitary candles across a darkened cathedral so immense that even 1,000 candles could not meaningfully illuminate its farthest corners. The Milky Way alone is thought to contain somewhere between 100 billion and 400 billion stars, a number so large it slides past comprehension, and yet, even with all these countless points of light, the galaxy remains overwhelmingly, almost entirely, empty space. If you could compress all the matter of the Milky Way, every star, every planet, every wisp of interstellar gas and dust, into a single grain of sand, and then scatter that grain somewhere within a volume the size of a cathedral, you would begin to approach, however imperfectly, some sense of just how much emptiness exists between the light. This is worth resting on for a moment, worth letting settle into the quiet corners of the mind. We tend to imagine the universe as crowded, glittering, packed edge to edge with brilliance, because this is how it appears in photographs, in illustrations, in the artificial closeness that telescopes create when they gather faint and distant light and press it together onto a single frame. But telescopes compress vast distances into small, comprehensible images. They are, in their own way, acts of profound compression, taking light that has traveled unimaginable distances from objects separated by unimaginable emptiness and folding it all into a single photograph, a single glowing tapestry that can trick the eye into believing the universe is dense with light, when in truth, it is dense with distance, dense with silence, dense with the vast, unhurried spaces between things. If you were to travel, somehow, beyond the edge of our solar system, beyond the reach of our sun's gentle gravity, and drift outward into true interstellar space, and if you could look around you in every direction, you would not see a sky ablaze with countless neighboring suns. You would see scattered points of light, faint and distant, set within an overwhelming and total darkness, because even inside a galaxy, even inside one of the densest concentrations of stars in the visible universe, the space between any two stars remains almost entirely empty. Emptier, in fact, than the finest vacuum that any laboratory here on Earth has ever managed to produce. This is perhaps the quietest and most humbling truth of Olber's paradox, more humbling even than the vastness of cosmic voids between galaxies. It is not only that galaxies are separated by staggering gulfs of emptiness. It is that within each galaxy, within each cluster of stars we imagine as crowded and bright, the stars themselves are so sparsely distributed, so thinly scattered across such enormous distances, that any line of sight extending outward from Earth has an overwhelmingly higher probability of passing through nothing at all, through cold and silent vacuum, than of ever striking the surface of a star. Multiply this sparse geometry, this near-total emptiness, across billions of galaxies, each separated from the next by the same aching distances, each galaxy itself composed of stars separated by the same profound emptiness within, and the darkness of the night sky begins to feel less like an unsolved mystery and more like the natural, inevitable consequence of a universe built primarily from absence. Light exists here and there, scattered like rare and precious sparks across an overwhelming darkness that was always, from the very beginning, the more fundamental truth. Stars are the exception. Emptiness is the rule. And when you lift your eyes to the night sky and witness that deep, velvet blackness stretching endlessly above you, you are not looking at a universe that has failed to fill itself with light. You are looking at a universe that was always, in its truest architecture, mostly darkness to begin with, a universe where light is the rare visitor and emptiness is the ancient host, patient and unbroken, stretching back before the first star ever kindled itself into being. And yet, even this understanding, the vastness of cosmic voids, the sparse scattering of stars within galaxies, the finite age of a universe still too young to fill every line of sight with ancient starlight, even taken together, these explanations still leave something unaccounted for. There is one more piece to this quiet puzzle, one more thread to follow into the dark, and it has to do not with where the light is or is not, but with what happens to light once it begins its long and lonely journey toward us. Because light, unlike a stone thrown into a pond, does not travel forever unchanged. It weakens. It fades. It thins itself across the enormous distances it must cross, and this fading, this slow and inevitable dimming, plays its own quiet role in the darkness above you. Think, for a moment, of a single candle, placed at the center of a large, dark room. Standing close beside it, the light feels warm, immediate, almost tangible in its brightness. But step backward, further and further into the room's shadowed edges, and the candle's glow diminishes, not because the candle itself has changed, not because it burns any less brightly than before, but because the same modest quantity of light must now spread itself across an ever-expanding sphere of space. This is the simple, elegant truth of what astronomers call the inverse square law. Light emanates outward from its source in every direction at once, spreading across the surface of an imaginary sphere that grows larger and larger the further the light travels. Double the distance from the candle, and its apparent brightness falls not by half, but by a factor of 4. Triple the distance, and the brightness falls by a factor of 9. The light has not vanished. It has not been destroyed. It has simply been spread so thin, across so vast an area, that by the time it reaches your eye, only the faintest whisper of it remains. Now extend this simple principle outward, not across the modest space of a darkened room, but across the staggering distances that separate us from the stars scattered throughout our galaxy, and further still, across the almost unimaginable distances that separate us from other galaxies entirely. A star like our own Sun, if placed at the distance of even our nearest stellar neighbors, would already appear as little more than a faint point of light in the night sky, its warmth and brilliance diluted almost to nothing by the sheer emptiness it must cross to reach us. And a galaxy, a vast congregation of 100 billion suns, when viewed from millions or billions of light-years away, is reduced by this same relentless thinning to a faint smudge, a delicate wisp of light so subtle that it often requires the patient, long exposure of a telescope's lens, gathering photons steadily over minutes or hours, simply to become visible at all to instruments far more sensitive than the human eye. This is why the night sky does not blaze with the combined brilliance of every star and every galaxy within our observable universe, even setting aside questions of cosmic age and cosmic structure. Even if we imagine, for a moment, an idealized universe, infinite and unchanging, filled evenly with stars in every direction the way Kepler once envisioned, the light from the most distant of these stars would still arrive diminished almost beyond detection, spread thin across the vast, expanding spheres of space it had to cross simply to reach us. Infinite distance does not simply mean infinite brightness. It means infinite dilution, infinite thinning, an endless succession of ever fainter whispers, each one drowned out by the profound and patient darkness of the space between. And this thinning compounds, layer upon layer, with everything we have already uncovered together in this quiet unfolding. The finite age of the universe limits how far back in time and space our vision can reach at all. The expansion of that universe stretches the light that does arrive into wavelengths our eyes were never built to perceive, shifting brilliant starlight into the invisible hum of the cosmic microwave background. The vast architecture of cosmic voids ensures that countless lines of sight extend outward through nothing but emptiness, encountering no source of light whatsoever. And now, even where stars and galaxies do exist along our line of sight, even where their ancient light has had time enough to reach us, that light arrives diminished, spread thin across unimaginable distances, faded by the same simple geometry that dims a candle's glow across a darkened room. Each of these forces alone would be enough to leave portions of the sky dark. Together, woven into the same vast and patient tapestry, they render the night sky almost entirely black, save for those scattered, precious points where light has managed, against every quiet obstacle placed before it, to survive the journey, to cross the widening gulfs between galaxies, to outlast the billions of years since its star first kindled it into being, to retain, even after unimaginable thinning, just enough strength to register as a single faint point against the vast black canvas above you. Each star you see at night, then, is not simply a light in the sky. It is a survivor, a messenger that endured everything the universe could place in its path, and still arrived. There is something worth sitting with here, something that deserves the slow, unhurried attention that only a quiet mind, drifting toward rest, can truly offer. Every photon of starlight reaching your eye at this very moment began its journey long before you existed, long before the room you are resting in was built, long before the language you think in was ever spoken. Some of that light left its source when the dinosaurs still walked the earth. Some of it left before the earth itself had formed, before our sun had condensed out of the collapsing cloud of gas and dust that would eventually become our solar system. And some of it, the most ancient light visible to the naked eye, has been traveling for so long that the star which produced it may no longer exist at all, may have long since exhausted its fuel, collapsed, expanded, or scattered itself back into the interstellar medium from which new stars will someday be born. You look up, and you see the past. Not a metaphorical past, not a poetic past, but a literal, physical past, carried across unimaginable distances by particles of light that have been traveling, uninterrupted, patient and silent, since long before you drew your first breath. This is part of why the darkness between the stars feels, to so many who have paused to study it, less like an absence and more like a presence in its own right. The dark is not empty of meaning simply because it is empty of light. It is, in its own way, a kind of vast and patient archive, holding within its depths the layered history of the universe itself, written not in words but in the simple, elegant physics of distance and time. Every dark patch of sky between the visible stars represents either a place where light has not yet had time to arrive, or a place where light passed through nothing at all, or a place where light arrived so faded, so thinned by the journey, that it fell below the threshold our eyes could ever hope to perceive. In every case, the darkness itself becomes a kind of information, a message about scale, about age, about the almost incomprehensible size of the universe we find ourselves within. Consider, too, what this means about our position here, within this vast unfolding structure. We exist on a small, quiet planet, orbiting an ordinary star, situated within an unremarkable arm of a fairly typical spiral galaxy, itself just one thread within the larger filament of the cosmic web, itself just one small piece of an observable universe whose true extent we may never fully comprehend. And from this modest vantage point, we are permitted to see only a fraction, a thin and fading sliver, of everything that exists. The vast majority of the universe's light, if we can even call it that any more by the time it reaches the scale of cosmic structure, remains forever beyond our reach, either because it has not yet had time to arrive, or because the universe's own expansion has carried its source beyond the cosmic horizon, into a region of space now receding from us faster than light itself could ever hope to cross the widening gap. This is not a cause for sorrow, though it may, in the quiet stillness of contemplation, evoke something close to a gentle ache. It is instead an invitation, a reminder of scale, a way of understanding just how vast, how old, how structured, and how patient the universe truly is. The darkness above you is not a flaw in the design of things. It is not evidence of some universe left unfinished, some canvas left incomplete by an absent painter. It is, instead, the natural and inevitable signature of a cosmos defined by finitude, by expansion, by structure, and by distance, a cosmos where light, however brilliant at its source, must always contend with the overwhelming scale of the space it is asked to cross. And so when you rest here, beneath whatever sky exists beyond the walls around you, and you allow your mind to settle into the quiet dark, know that this darkness carries within it billions of years of cosmic history, patiently layered, one silent truth atop another, waiting not to be feared, but to be understood, slowly, gently, the way sleep itself arrives, unbidden, unforced, welcomed rather than willed into being. Consider, for a moment, what it truly means to say that space is expanding. Not that galaxies are hurtling outward through some pre-existing emptiness, the way a handful of stones might scatter across still water, but that the very fabric between them is stretching, quietly, continuously, everywhere at once. Space itself is not a stage upon which the cosmic drama unfolds. Space is a participant. It swells. It grows. And as it grows, it carries the galaxies within it farther and farther apart, not because they are moving through space, but because space is moving them. This distinction matters more than it might first appear, here in the hush of near sleep, because it means that the light leaving a distant galaxy is not simply crossing a fixed distance, the way a stone might travel from your hand to a wall. It is chasing a destination that is itself receding. It is running through a corridor that lengthens even as it runs. And for galaxies far enough away, The expansion outpaces the light entirely. Their glow, however patient, however persistent, never arrives. It cannot arrive. The space between us and them grows faster than light can close it. This is the boundary astronomers call the observable universe, an edge that is not a wall, not a fence, not a place where the cosmos ends, but a horizon defined purely by time and by light's own patient limitations. Beyond it, there is almost certainly more universe, more galaxies, more stars, more silent burning light. We simply cannot see it. We may never see it. Not because it isn't there, but because the light from it has not had time, in the entire 14 billion year history of everything, to cross the widening gulf between there and here. Let that settle into you the way warmth settles into tired limbs. The darkness above you is not empty of light. It is full of light that has not yet had the chance to reach you, and light that, in some cases, will never reach you at all, not because of any flaw in its journey, but because the road itself keeps lengthening beneath its feet. And here is something stranger still, something to hold gently in the quiet architecture of your mind as your breathing slows. As space expands, it does something to the light already traveling through it. It stretches that light as well. A wave of visible light, blue or white or yellow at its origin, can be pulled, elongated, drawn out into longer and longer wavelengths as it crosses billions of years of expanding space. This is called redshift, and for light from the most distant, most ancient sources, the stretching can be so extreme that visible light becomes infrared, and infrared becomes microwave, slipping entirely out of the narrow band our eyes were built to perceive. So even where light does arrive, even where it completes its impossible journey across the void, it may arrive transformed, arrive as something we cannot see without instruments built specifically to listen for it. The universe is not only dark because light has not had time to reach us. It is dark, in places, because the light that does reach us has been stretched into invisibility, present but imperceptible, a frequency shifted just beyond the reach of human sight. There is a kind of humility in this, a kind of quiet lesson for the mind drifting toward rest. We are creatures evolved beneath a single star, our eyes calibrated to a narrow sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum that our particular sun happens to emit most strongly. We call this sliver visible light, as though it were the whole of what exists, as though everything worth seeing must fall within the small window our biology permits. But the universe does not organize itself around what human eyes can perceive. It speaks in radio waves and gamma rays, in ultraviolet and infrared, in wavelengths stretched by billions of years of cosmic expansion into frequencies we could never have evolved to detect, because no organism on Earth ever needed to. And so the darkness of the night sky is, in part, an artifact of perception itself, a boundary drawn not only by physics but by the particular, limited, beautifully specific way that human beings happen to see. Somewhere above you, in this very moment, ancient light is arriving, stretched and transformed, carrying information about the earliest structures of the universe, and your eyes, wonderful as they are, simply cannot register it. It passes through you, or near you, unseen, unfelt, a message written in a language your senses were never built to read. This is not a failure. It is simply the shape of things, the particular architecture of a universe vast enough to contain wavelengths beyond counting, and creatures small enough to perceive only the faintest, narrowest band of that immensity. And perhaps there is something worth sitting with in that thought as sleep draws nearer, something almost tender, the recognition that you were never meant to see everything, that some truths arrive in forms built for instruments rather than eyes, that the universe holds far more than any single sense could ever hope to gather, and that this too is part of its vastness, not a diminishment of you, but a testament to how much larger the story is than any single witness could contain. Let your thoughts drift now toward the stars themselves, the ones whose light does reach you, whose glow does cross the dark unbroken and unstretched beyond recognition, landing softly on the retina the way snow lands on open palms. Even here, in this simplest and most intimate of cosmic exchanges, there is a strangeness worth resting in. Every star you have ever looked upon, every point of light that has ever pulled your gaze upward on some ordinary night, you have never seen it as it is. You have only ever seen what it was. Light is fast, unimaginably fast, and yet even light requires time to move, and the distances involved are so vast that time becomes impossible to ignore. The star nearest to our Sun, a small red companion called Proxima Centauri, sits a little over 4 light-years away. This means the light reaching your eyes tonight, if you could see it, left that star 4 years ago, traveled quietly through the dark for 4 full years, through storms and seasons and the small unfolding dramas of a single human life, before finally arriving to be gathered by your eye. You are not looking at Proxima Centauri as it is in this moment. You are looking at a memory, a photograph of the past, delivered faithfully across the void. And this is the near case, the close case, the gentle introduction to a truth that only deepens the farther out you look. The stars of familiar constellations, the ones woven into human myth for tens of thousands of years, sit anywhere from a few dozen to a few thousand light-years away. Their light was already old, already traveling, when Rome rose and fell, when the pyramids were still being raised stone by patient stone, when the first cities were only beginning to gather along ancient riverbanks. You look up and you believe you are witnessing the present. You are, in truth, witnessing an accumulation of pasts, each star a different chapter, each point of light a different century, arranged together in the sky as though they belonged to the same moment, when in fact they belong to no single moment at all. This is one of the great, quiet illusions of the night sky, and there is something almost dreamlike in accepting it fully. The sky you look upon is not a photograph taken all at once. It is a collage, a patchwork stitched together from light of wildly different ages, some fresh and recent, some ancient beyond easy comprehension, all arriving together, all landing on your eye in the same breath, as though time itself had folded just enough to let these separate moments share a single sky. Some of what you see may no longer exist at all. A star whose light left it 1,000 years ago may have already died, may have already collapsed or exploded or quietly faded into darkness, and you would have no way of knowing, not yet, not until the news of its ending completes its own long journey across the same vast distance its living light once traveled. You could, at this very moment, be looking at the ghost of something, a light still traveling long after its source has gone silent, a message still arriving long after the sender has fallen quiet forever. There is no need to find this frightening. Let it settle instead as something closer to reverence, the way one might feel standing before an old and patient monument, aware that it has witnessed centuries you will never touch, aware that it carries within it a history far longer than your own brief span of waking and sleeping. The night sky performs a similar function, though on a scale so much larger that human history becomes, by comparison, the smallest of footnotes. It is a monument built of light instead of stone, and instead of standing still, it is constantly arriving, constantly completing journeys that began before you were born, in some cases before your species existed at all, in some cases before the earth itself had cooled into solid ground. And so darkness and light together, woven into the same sky, become a kind of temporal tapestry, one that erases the ordinary boundaries between past and present, one that gathers together moments separated by centuries and by millennia and asks you, gently, without demand, to hold them all in the same unhurried gaze. This is not something the conscious mind was built to easily grasp, not in its ordinary daylight state, quick and analytical and eager for clean, simple answers. But here, in the soft suspension between waking and sleep, such complexity can be received differently, not as a puzzle to be solved, but as a sensation to be felt, a slow unspooling of scale that asks nothing of you except your quiet attention. Let this thought settle now like sediment drifting toward the floor of some deep and ancient sea, unhurried, unforced, finding its place among all the other quiet truths gathering slowly within. You, layer upon layer, the way sediment becomes stone, the way stone becomes the quiet architecture of mountains. There is another piece of this puzzle worth resting in now, something Heinrich Olbers himself, and the astronomers who came before and after him, wrestled with as they tried to reconcile a universe of infinite stars with a sky so dark. If the universe were infinite in extent and infinite in age, and stars were scattered evenly throughout it, then every single line of sight, no matter which direction you turned your gaze, would eventually terminate at the surface of some star. The entire sky, every inch of it, should blaze with light. It should be as bright as the surface of the sun itself, an unbroken wall of radiance with no room left for shadow. This was the paradox in its purest form, and for a long time, it seemed to have no easy resolution. The mathematics were simple enough. The conclusion was unavoidable, given the assumptions. And yet the sky above every human being who had ever lived remained, stubbornly, beautifully, dark. Something in the assumptions themselves had to be wrong. We have already touched on part of the answer, resting here in this quiet hour. The universe is not infinitely old. It has a beginning, a moment some 13.8 billion years ago when space itself began its long unfurling, and light has only had that much time, not one moment more, to travel outward and reach us. A universe with a beginning is a universe with a horizon, a boundary drawn not in space but in time, beyond which no light has yet had the chance to arrive. But there is more to it than age alone, and this next piece is worth holding gently, turning it over slowly in the mind the way one might turn a smooth stone over in an open palm. Even within the portion of the universe we can observe, even within that boundary of 13.8 billion years, the density of stars, immense as it is, remains staggeringly small when measured against the sheer volume of space they occupy. Stars are not stacked shoulder to shoulder, filling every possible line of sight the way trees might fill a dense and endless forest. They are separated by distances so vast that the space between them dwarfs the stars themselves almost beyond comprehension. Picture, if it helps the mind settle into scale, our own sun reduced to the size of a single grain of sand. At that scale, the nearest star, Proxima Centauri, would sit not inches away, not even feet away, but roughly the length of several football fields distant, an empty gulf of nothing stretching between one grain of sand and the next. Multiply this emptiness across the 100 billion stars of a single galaxy, and then across the hundreds of billions of galaxies scattered throughout the observable universe, and you begin to sense the truth beneath the paradox. Space is not full of stars. Space is full of space, punctuated, here and there, by the small brilliant exception of a star. This is why most lines of sight, even across billions of years of light travel time, terminate not at the surface of some distant sun, but simply in more darkness, more emptiness, more of the quiet nothing that makes up the overwhelming majority of the cosmos. The universe is, by volume, almost entirely empty. Matter, all of it, every star and planet and moon and grain of dust, constitutes only the faintest trace of what exists, a scattering of small fires across an ocean of dark that stretches farther than any single fire could ever hope to illuminate. And so Olbers' question, though brilliant in its logic, rested on an assumption the universe simply does not fulfill. It assumed a sky saturated with stars in every direction, a density thick enough to guarantee that every glance upward would meet a burning surface. But the universe, in its actual, physical unfolding, is sparse. It is patient. It leaves room, vast and generous room, between one point of light and the next. Darkness is not the absence of stars trying and failing to fill the sky. Darkness is the natural, expected texture of a cosmos where stars are the exception, however numerous, and empty space is overwhelmingly the rule. There is something worth carrying into sleep in this thought, something almost like permission. The emptiness around you, the emptiness above you, the vast quiet stretches between one star and the next, are not failures of a universe trying to be full. They are simply what a universe looks like when it has room enough to breathe, when it is not crowded, not claustrophobic, not pressed tight with light demanding to be seen. There is space between things because space itself is the medium in which all things are given room to exist, to form, to burn, to fade, without collision, without constant interruption, without the ceaseless press of one star's light against another's. And perhaps, as your own thoughts begin to loosen and drift, there is comfort in borrowing something from that same quiet architecture, in imagining your own mind as something similarly spacious, similarly unhurried, thoughts scattered like stars across a dark and generous field, each one distinct, each one given room enough to simply be, without the need to crowd against the next, without the need to fill every inch of available silence. Consider, too, the particular quality of the darkness itself, not as an absence but as a kind of medium, a canvas with its own subtle texture, its own quiet properties. Even in the emptiest reaches of intergalactic space, the dark is not perfectly, absolutely empty. It carries within it a faint and ancient warmth, a whisper left over from the universe's own infancy, something scientists call the cosmic microwave background. This is the oldest light in existence, the very first radiation to escape freely across space, released roughly 380,000 years after the beginning of everything, when the universe had cooled enough for atoms to form, for photons to finally travel unimpeded instead of scattering endlessly through a hot, dense fog of charged particles. This ancient glow surrounds you now, in this very moment, arriving from every direction at once, a faint microwave hum permeating the whole of the observable universe. It has been stretched by billions of years of cosmic expansion, pulled from the fierce visible brilliance it once possessed into wavelengths far too long for human eyes to register, cooled now to barely a few degrees above absolute zero. You cannot see it. No unaided eye ever could. And yet it is there, a kind of afterglow, a memory of the universe's first true light, still traveling, still arriving, filling the darkness with a presence too faint and too transformed for your senses to detect. There is something worth resting in here, something almost tender in its implications. The darkness above you, the darkness you might have once imagined as simple emptiness, is in fact saturated with information, with history, with the oldest surviving whisper of everything that would eventually become stars and galaxies and planets and, eventually, improbably, you. The dark sky is not a void. It is an archive. It holds within it the compressed, quiet memory of the universe's entire unfolding, layer upon layer, from the first scattering of ancient light to the more recent glow of stars still burning tonight. And so when you close your eyes and let the darkness settle around you, know that this same darkness, extended outward across billions of light years, carries within it a story so vast that human language strains to hold its shape. It carries the birth of the first stars, enormous and short-lived, forged from nothing but hydrogen and gravity and time. It carries the deaths of those same stars, their final moments scattering heavier elements outward into space, carbon and oxygen and iron, the very atoms that would one day gather into new stars, new planets, and eventually into the intricate architecture of living things. It carries the slow formation of galaxies, vast spiraling cities of stars bound together by gravity, drifting through the cosmic dark like ships crossing some impossibly patient ocean. It carries collisions and mergers, galaxies passing through one another in slow-motion ballets that unfold across hundreds of millions of years, reshaping structure, igniting new generations of star formation, leaving behind trails of stellar debris still visible today to those who know how to look. All of this is folded into the darkness you now rest beneath. Every silent gap between one star and the next holds not emptiness alone but time itself, layered and patient, waiting quietly for minds capable of understanding to look upward and begin to ask what it might mean. There is a particular kind of peace available in this recognition, one that asks nothing of you except stillness. You do not need to solve the universe tonight. You do not need to hold its full scale within a single thought, to trace every star to its origin, to calculate every distance, to translate every wavelength of ancient stretched light into some neat and tidy understanding. The universe does not require your comprehension in order to continue existing exactly as it is. It unfolds regardless, indifferent in the gentlest possible sense, not cruel, not cold, simply vast beyond the need for any single witness to fully grasp it. And perhaps this is where real rest begins, not in mastering the cosmos, but in releasing the need to master it, in allowing yourself to exist within its scale without needing to comprehend every layer of its architecture all at once. The stars will continue burning whether or not you understand nuclear fusion. The light will continue stretching across the widening dark whether or not you can recite the mathematics of cosmic expansion. And you, small and warm and temporarily awake within this immensity, are permitted simply to notice, to wonder, to feel the quiet scale of it settle over you like a blanket woven from starlight and shadow both, and then, slowly, to let your attention drift loose from any single thread, following instead the slow pulse of the dark itself, the way it breathes between one point of light and the next, patient, unhurried, older than any word we have invented to describe it. Because this is the part worth sitting with, in this soft and settling hour, the darkness is not empty. It only appears that way to eyes built for narrower purposes, eyes shaped by a single yellow star and a thin blue atmosphere, tuned to notice fruit against leaves, motion against stillness, danger against safety. Your eyes, remarkable as they are, were never built to perceive a universe. They were built to perceive a forest, a shoreline, a face across a fire. And so when you lift your gaze into the night and see black stretching between the stars, you are not seeing absence. You are seeing the limit of your own borrowed instrument, the boundary where biology quietly hands the universe back to imagination. Because out there, in the space between what your eyes can gather, there is light moving constantly, ceaselessly, in wavelengths your body was never designed to catch. Radio waves drifting from the shredded edges of distant galaxies. Microwaves, the oldest light of all, humming faintly in every direction, a residue of the universe's first free breath after birth. Infrared light glowing softly from clouds of dust wrapped around stars still being born, stars not yet lit, not yet visible, patiently gathering themselves out of gas and gravity in a slowness that makes even mountains seem hurried. All of this exists. All of this moves through the room around you right now, passing through your skin, through the walls, through the blankets pulled up to your chin, unnoticed, indifferent to whether you notice it at all. And this is not a flaw in the universe. It is simply scale meeting biology, infinity meeting a finite nervous system doing its humble best. Consider, for a moment, how strange it is that we see anything at all. That out of the whole electromagnetic spectrum, stretching from the longest radio waves to the shortest gamma rays, a spectrum vast enough to make galaxies look like brushstrokes, your eyes were given only the narrowest sliver, a single narrow band we call visible light. Not because that band is special to the universe. It is special only to us, tuned by the particular chemistry of the sun that raised us, the particular atmosphere that shelters us, the particular evolutionary corridor your ancestors wandered through beneath skies not so different from this one. What you call color, what you call light, what you call the visible world, is a kind of translation. A narrow window cut into an infinite wall. And so when you look up and call the space between the stars dark, you are speaking a truth that belongs only to your window, not to the universe as a whole. Somewhere, if you could borrow different eyes, tuned to microwaves instead of visible light, the entire sky would glow. Every direction, every corner of the dark, filled with a faint and even shimmer, the afterglow of the universe's earliest light, stretched by billions of years of expansion into wavelengths your body cannot register. That glow surrounds you tonight, whether you can perceive it or not. You are, at this very moment, sleeping inside the residual warmth of creation itself, wrapped not just in blankets, but in the oldest photograph light has ever taken, the picture of everything, still developing, still arriving, 400,000 years after the beginning of time. There is something quietly moving in that thought, isn't there? That comprehension was never the requirement for belonging. That you do not need the right eyes, the right instruments, the right equations, to be held within the architecture of the cosmos. You already are. You have always been. The universe does not wait for your senses to catch up before including you in its unfolding. And perhaps this, too, is part of what makes rest possible tonight. Not needing to see everything in order to trust that everything exists. Not needing to translate every hidden wavelength in order to feel the truth of what surrounds you. There is a kind of faith embedded quietly in astronomy itself, the willingness to trust in patterns we cannot directly observe, gravity's pull on stars we cannot fully explain without invoking matter we cannot see, expansion accelerating for reasons still not entirely understood, the whole universe behaving as though there is far more to it than what meets even our most powerful telescopes. Scientists call this dark matter, dark energy, and though the names sound ominous, they are, in truth, simply honest. A way of saying, we know something is here, shaping what we can measure, even though we cannot yet see it directly. And you, lying here in this dim and quiet room, are not so different. Shaped by forces you cannot always see. Held by gravities you cannot always name. Trusting, in the end, that the darkness around you is not a void but a language you simply have not yet learned to read, its meaning already written into. Every photon still traveling toward you, every wavelength still unfolding somewhere between then and now, patient as sediment settling at the bottom of a sea too vast to measure in years alone. Because this, too, is part of the quiet architecture of the night. Light does not arrive instantly. It travels. It takes time, real time, measurable time, moving at a speed so fast it feels, from where you sit, indistinguishable from immediacy, and yet slow enough, across the true distances of the cosmos, that what you see when you look upward is never quite the present. It is memory. It is history, arriving late, dressed in the clothing of now. Think of it slowly, the way it deserves to be thought of. The moonlight resting on your windowsill left the moon little more than a second ago, a small and gentle delay, barely noticeable, barely worth mentioning. But the light from the sun, warm and familiar, the light your body has known since before memory, that light is already 8 minutes old by the time it reaches your skin. Which means, if the sun was somehow to vanish this very instant, quietly, without warning, you would not know. Not yet. For 8 more minutes, the sky would carry on as if nothing had changed, sunlight still falling, shadows still stretching, warmth still lingering on stone and skin, a memory of a star already gone, still pretending to be present. There is no need for alarm in this. The sun is not vanishing. It will burn steadily for billions of years more, faithful in its fusion, patient in its fire. But the fact remains, quietly astonishing, that even your closest relationship with light, the one your entire biology depends upon, is already a small act of time travel. You have never once seen the sun as it is in this exact moment. You have only ever seen where it was, 8 minutes into its own past, folded gently into your present. And if this is true of the sun, so near, so intimate, so essential to every rhythm your body keeps, imagine what it means for the stars scattered farther out, the ones scattered like salt across the dark dome above you. Their light has traveled not minutes, but years, decades, centuries. Some of it has been moving since long before your grandparents were born, since long before the first maps were drawn, since long before language had words for stars at all. You look up, and you are not looking at the universe as it is. You are looking at a gallery of old photographs, each one lit by a different candle, each candle burning at a different distance in time, layered together into a single sky that only looks unified because your eyes cannot perceive the folds between then and then and then. Some of those stars may not even exist anymore. Not in the way you imagine existing. Some may have already swelled, dimmed, collapsed, scattered their outer layers into soft expanding shells of gas, quietly transforming from stars into nebulae, into stellar nurseries, into the raw material for future suns not yet born. And yet their old light continues arriving, faithful and unaware, carrying the shape of something that no longer holds that shape, a signal outliving its source, a voice still speaking long after the mouth that shaped it has gone still. There is no need for sorrow in this either. If anything, there is a strange and gentle comfort folded into it, because it suggests something quiet about presence itself, about how what we witness is rarely the same as what simply is. We are, all of us, always looking backward, always receiving, always interpreting arrivals rather than events. Even in ordinary life, even in ordinary rooms, the sound of a voice takes a small measurable moment to reach an ear. Even touch, even nearness, is mediated by nerves translating sensation into signal, signal into feeling, feeling arriving a beat behind the moment that caused it. You have never lived in pure, instantaneous present. No one has. Not truly. We are all, always, slightly behind the universe we are trying to perceive. And perhaps that is not a flaw to mourn, but a rhythm to rest inside of. A reminder that connection was never dependent on synchrony. That meaning does not require simultaneity. The starlight reaching your closed eyes tonight carries the shape of something ancient, something distant, something possibly gone, and still, it reaches you. Still, it matters. Still, it becomes part of the quiet architecture of this particular night, folded into your particular breathing, your particular stillness, your particular pause between waking and sleep. You do not need to hold the weight of these distances in your mind to feel their gentleness. You do not need to calculate the years, measure the light years, name the constellations correctly, or recall which stars have already died. You only need to lie here, beneath light that has traveled farther than imagination comfortably allows, and let it settle over you the way distant things settle, softly, without urgency, arriving not to inform you but simply to accompany you, the way old letters arrive long after the hand that wrote them has moved on, still finding their way, quietly, into hands that were not yet open when the words were first set down. And so we return, gently, to the darkness itself, the one that first prompted this long and unhurried wondering. Why, if the universe holds so many stars, does the space between them remain so profoundly black? It is a question that has occupied careful minds for centuries, a puzzle so simple in its phrasing and so enormous in its implications that it earned its own name, borrowed from the astronomer who examined it most closely. Olber's paradox, they call it, though the paradox itself belongs to no single person, belongs instead to anyone who has ever looked up and felt the quiet contradiction settle in. The reasoning unfolds slowly, the way most true things do. If the universe were infinite and eternal, and evenly filled with stars stretching outward in every direction without end, then every single line of sight, no matter where you aimed it, should eventually strike the surface of some star. Not most lines. All of them. The sky, in such a universe, should be a solid, blinding wall of light, every gap between visible stars filled in by more distant ones, and gaps between those filled by others further still, layer upon layer of starlight compounding until the darkness had nowhere left to hide. In a truly infinite and unchanging universe, night should not exist at all. The sky should burn. And yet it does not. The sky above you now, whatever fragment of it you might glimpse through a window or carry only in memory, remains mostly dark, scattered lightly with individual points of light, comfortable gaps of black stretching wide and calm between them. Which means something about the premise must be incomplete. Something about infinity, about eternity, about evenness, does not hold the way it first appears to. The universe, it turns out, is not eternal in the way old philosophies once imagined. It had a beginning, a moment unfathomably dense and hot, from which everything, space itself included, began expanding outward. This single fact quietly resolves much of the paradox. Because if the universe has only existed for a finite span of time, roughly 13.8 billion years, then light from the most distant stars, however numerous, has not yet had time to reach you. The sky is not filled edge to edge with starlight because starlight, however fast, however patient, has not yet completed its long journey inward. Somewhere, beyond the reach of your eyes, beyond even the reach of the deepest telescopes, there is a boundary, not of space itself, but of light's arrival, a horizon built not from distance but from time. This is often called the observable universe, and the phrase deserves to be sat with slowly. Not the universe. Not all of it. Only what is observable, only what has had time to arrive. Beyond that boundary, more stars almost certainly exist, more galaxies, more slow-turning spirals of light and gas and quiet gravity, but their glow has simply not yet had the time to complete its crossing. The darkness between the stars you see, then, is not evidence of absence. It is evidence of youth. It is the universe still in the process of introducing itself to you, one photon at a time, patient beyond anything your daily life prepares you to imagine. And even this is only part of the answer, because the universe carries a second, gentler complication, one wrapped not in time but in motion. Space itself is expanding, has been expanding since its earliest moments, stretching the distances between galaxies wider with every passing year, softly pulling light along with it, lengthening its wavelength, dimming its intensity, spreading its energy thinner across a widening dark. Light from the most distant galaxies does not simply have far to travel. It also weakens as it travels, its brightness diluted by the very expansion that carried it here. Some light, from the earliest and most distant sources, has been stretched so far beyond visible wavelengths that human eyes could never perceive it directly, no matter how long they gazed, no matter how dark and adapted they became. It exists. It arrives. It simply arrives as something other than light, translated into infrared, into microwave, into whispers your body was never built to hear. So the darkness above you is not empty space failing to be filled. It is finitude, quietly visible. It is time, made luminous in negative space, the black between stars acting as a kind of soft, breathing proof that the universe had an origin, that it is still unfolding, that it has not yet finished arriving. Every dark patch of sky is, in its own way, a message. Not the absence of stars, but the presence of a universe still young enough, still expanding enough, still becoming enough, that its full light has not yet had the chance to reach the quiet room where you are lying now, eyes half closed, breathing slow, resting inside a night that is not empty at all, only. Still catching up to itself, still writing the last lines of a story whose ending has not yet been composed. There is something almost tender in this idea, if you let yourself sit inside it for a while. That darkness, the very thing that once seemed like emptiness, like a kind of cosmic silence, is instead a form of unfinished intimacy. The universe has not withheld its light from you. It simply has not yet arrived. Somewhere out beyond the furthest galaxies your telescopes can trace, there are stars whose light is still crossing the space between then and now, still approaching, still, in some very real sense, on its way to you specifically, to this exact moment, to this particular night when you happen to be lying still enough to receive whatever does arrive. And perhaps this is worth resting in for a while. The idea that you are not separate from this unfolding, that you exist inside the same slow arithmetic of arrival as the light itself. You, too, are still becoming, still catching up to your own story, still receiving information that was set into motion long before you had the language to understand it, moments from childhood only now settling into meaning, feelings only now arriving at clarity after years of traveling quietly through the dark spaces of memory. The universe does not rush its light. It does not rush its stars into being, does not rush its galaxies into formation, does not rush its answers toward your waiting mind. Everything arrives at the pace its distance requires, and there is a kind of permission in that, extended not just to the cosmos but to you as well. You do not need to be finished either. You do not need to have arrived completely at understanding, at peace, at whatever quiet resolution you have been reaching toward. You are permitted your own unfinished distances, your own light still traveling. Consider, too, how the darkness holds not only absence but potential. Between the stars you can see lie the quiet nurseries where future stars are gathering themselves, slow clouds of hydrogen and dust pulled together by the patient hand of gravity, contracting so gradually that entire human lifetimes pass without any visible change. And yet change is happening. Deep within those clouds, pressure builds, temperature rises, and eventually, over spans of time too long for any single mind to fully hold, a new star ignites, a new source of light begins its own long journey outward. The darkness between the visible stars is not a void waiting to be filled by chance. It is a womb, quietly working, quietly becoming, hidden mostly from view not because nothing is happening, but because what is happening happens too slowly, too softly, for eyes built on the timescale of a single lifetime to notice. Perhaps you are something like that too, in this quiet hour. Perhaps whatever feels unfinished in you, whatever feels unresolved, gathering rather than arriving, is not evidence of emptiness but of formation. Something slow, something patient, something gravity is still pulling together in the dark, unhurried, unseen, but real nonetheless. The sky does not owe you a full explanation tonight. It never has. It offers instead these fragments, these old and traveling lights, these long silences between them that are not silences at all but conversations still in transit. You do not need to translate every part of it. You do not need to trace each thread of physics to its origin, or hold the full architecture of space-time steady in your mind before you are allowed to rest. The universe was never asking that of you. It only ever asked that you notice, occasionally, the way light finds you regardless, the way darkness holds you gently rather than emptily, the way even the vast and echoing black between the stars is, in its own patient language, still speaking. Let your breathing slow further now, matching itself, if it wants to something larger than the room around you. There is no need to hurry toward sleep, just as there was no need for the universe to hurry toward filling its sky with light. Things arrive when they arrive. Distances close when they close. You are permitted this same unhurried unfolding, this same quiet becoming, wrapped now not in mystery as something to solve, but in mystery as something to simply, softly belong to. Above you, whether visible or not, whether behind clouds or ceiling or closed and heavy eyelids, the sky continues its long and ancient work, stars burning, light stretching, galaxies drifting slowly apart in a darkness that is really only the shape of time not yet finished arriving. And you, small and warm and temporarily awake within all of it, are held inside that same unfinished sentence, that same soft trajectory of light still moving quietly toward. Wherever you are, whoever you are, however long it takes to reach you, patient as it has always been, patient as it will always be. And so, in these final quiet moments, there is nothing left to solve. Nothing left to calculate, or measure, or hold in careful suspension within a tired and willing mind. The universe has offered what it always offers, which is not answers so much as company, not conclusions so much as presence, vast and dark and softly lit, stretching out around you the way it has stretched around every sleeping creature beneath every night sky since the first eyes learned to lift themselves upward and wonder. You have traveled far tonight, though you have not moved from where you lie. You have crossed distances measured not in miles but in years, in light years, in the slow unfolding of time itself, and you have done this simply by listening, simply by allowing your attention to drift outward and then softly back again, the way the tide moves without needing to explain itself to the shore. There is no test at the end of this. No comprehension required, no proof of understanding, no need to recite the names of galaxies or the mathematics of expansion in order to have received what the night intended to offer. It offered itself. That was always enough. Perhaps what remains now is only this: a body growing heavier against whatever surface holds it. A breath slowing, not because it is told to, but because something in the vastness outside has given permission for something in the vastness inside to finally rest. The stars above you, whether visible tonight or hidden behind clouds, behind rooftops, behind eyelids finally surrendering to their own quiet gravity, continue their unhurried burning, indifferent not out of coldness but out of scale, a scale so large that indifference becomes, strangely, its own form of tenderness. The universe does not need to notice you in order for you to belong within it. It already holds you, the way space holds every scattered point of light, not by grasping, but simply by being large enough to include. The darkness that once seemed like a question is, by now, something closer to a companion. Not empty. Never empty. Only patient, only spacious, only wide enough to hold both the ancient light still arriving and the quiet unfinished thoughts still settling somewhere behind your closing eyes. Whatever you did not resolve tonight, whatever wondering you carried into the stillness without fully unraveling it, you are permitted to leave it here, folded gently into the dark, the way starlight is folded into distance, the way meaning is folded into memory, arriving slowly, arriving eventually, arriving exactly when it is ready and not one moment before. There is no need to hold on to this any longer. Let the images drift loose now, the burning cores of distant suns, the slow gathering clouds of unborn stars, the ancient photograph of the universe's first light still glowing faintly in every direction whether your eyes can find it or not. Let them scatter softly, the way thoughts scatter at the edge of sleep, losing their sharpness, losing their need to be followed to completion, becoming instead simply texture, simply atmosphere, simply the quiet hum of a mind finally permitted to stop reaching. You do not need to carry the universe with you into sleep. It will still be here when you wake, unchanged in its patience, unhurried in its unfolding, continuing to send its old and traveling light toward a version of you that will open its eyes again into morning. The stars are not going anywhere. The dark spaces between them are not emptiness to fear but distance still being crossed, stories still being told, arrivals still being prepared, all of it happening on a timescale so vast that your entire life, however long or short, will occupy only the smallest imaginable fraction of it, and there is peace in that smallness, not despair. To be small within something so vast is not to be insignificant. It is to be held. It is to be accompanied. It is to be, however briefly, however quietly, part of something that will continue long after you, and that included you all the same. So let this be where the wondering rests tonight. Not in resolution, but in reverence. Not in mastering the dark, but in trusting it. Somewhere above you, light that left its source before you were born continues moving quietly toward this exact moment, unaware that you are here, unaware that you are listening, arriving all the same. Let it arrive. Let it settle. Let the darkness hold what it has always held, and let sleep come now, slow and certain, the way starlight comes, traveling a long way simply to find you, and asking, in the end, for nothing at all in return.